From earliest times the oppressed have awaked me and called me to lead them. I guided them out of enslavement and brought them to high roads of freedom. I marched at the head of their legions and hailed a new world at its birth. And now I shall march with the peoples until they unfetter the earth. And you, all your sanctified money bags, bandits anointed and crowned, your counterfeit towers of justice and ethics will crash to the ground. I'll send my good sword through your hearts that have drained the world's blood in their lust. Smash all your crowns and your scepters and trample them into the dust. I'll rip off your rich purple garments, tear them to rags and to shreds. Never again will their glitter be able to turn people's heads. At last your cold world will be robbed of its proud hypocritical glow, for we shall dissolve it as surely as sunlight dissolves the deep snow.
The Communist Party of Britain was founded in 1920 in the tradition of revolt that produced Wat Tyler, the Levellers and the Diggers, the Tolpuddle Martyrs, the Chartists and the Suffragettes. 9 million men had slaughtered each other in the Great War in the service of kings, capitalists and empires.
In the factories and mills, in the shipyards and mines, we've often been told to keep up with the times, but our skills are not needed. They've streamlined the job, and we're slide rule and stopwatch our pride they have robbed. Aye, but when the sky darkens and the prospect is war, who's given a gun and then pushed to the fore and expected to die for the land of our birth, though we've never owned one handful of earth?
Most Labour leaders had joined the British War Cabinet, betraying their pre-war promises to mobilise the Labour movement for peace. In Russia, Hungary and Germany, armed workers seized power.
The Bolsheviks declared that the war was an imperialist war, that the workers were being sent into a bloodbath in the interests of their exploiters, that the leaders of the old International had betrayed the working class, and therefore that the Second International, which had existed since 1889, had collapsed, and that a new international, based on the principles of the class struggle of Marx and Engels, would be essential.
The attitude of the British ruling class here was to crush the Russian Revolution. That was the whole attitude that was adopted at that time, and they made no bones about it.
In Britain, troops mutinied against plans to send them to Soviet Russia to, in Winston Churchill's words, strangle a Bolshevik baby in its cradle.
We had to prepare to obey orders, and we were just meditating what to be done about it when on January the 5th, a whole echelon of soldiers down at Dover refused to go on board, and within 3 hours there were about 30,000 troops in Dover who were refusing to embark. They simply went on strike, and they told their commanding officers that they, very respectfully, that they didn't intend to go to Russia.
Large areas of Clydeside, industrial England and South Wales were placed under military occupation as workers fought for jobs, wages, a 40-hour week and decent housing.
They agreed that they would fight for a 40-hour week. They got the factories out on that. And the reason for that was partly because they wanted shorter hours and partly because they thought it would absorb the unemployed.
On July 31st, 1920, revolutionary socialists and trade unionists met at the old Cannon Street Hotel on the edge of the City of London. And the next day at the International Socialist Club here in Hackney to form a party of a new type, the Communist Party of Great Britain. A party organised for socialist revolution. The communists believed that capitalism was a system based on the exploitation of the majority, those who produce society's goods and services, by the minority, those who owned most of industry and commerce. That it could never serve the interests of workers and their families or of humanity as a whole. That's why it had to be swept away by socialist revolution.
The early Communist Party was dominated by coal miners, dockers, shipyard workers, engineers, railwaymen, factory hands and weavers. Without workers selling their labour power below its value, capitalism couldn't make a profit. The system wouldn't last a week. It's at the point of production that workers can exercise their collective power most effectively. That's why the working class has always been at the heart of the Communist Party's organisation and activity.
Since 1920, the party has been part and parcel of Britain's labour movement. Its first MPs, Shapurji Saklatvala in Battersea North and Walter Newbold in Motherwell, were both elected in 1923 with Labour Party support. Rajani Palmer Dutt founded Labour Monthly, which he then edited for more than 50 years.
During the first half of 1924, we had 3 members of the General Council, including its chairman. We had 3 members of the Labour Party executive. We had 4 general secretaries of major unions. And that was the formation of the left wing in the top trade union circles, which in the second half of 1924 became the basis of the British Soviet Trade Union Committee.
The communists threw themselves into the great industrial battles of the 1920s, organising the national minority movement and urging workers to unite and resist attacks on their wages and conditions.
The minority movement was not then talking about them leading something as an independent movement apart from the trade union movement. They were talking about winning the whole of the trade union movement and up to the TUC to be leading these militant things, a fight back